All right. Today we are diving deep into a philosophy that takes one of history's most, well, let's say controversial figures and completely reframes him as a symbol for an intensely personal journey, the path to self-knowledge.
So, let's start with a question, just to get our heads in the right space. Forget everything you think you know for just a second and chew on this. What if the greatest act of rebellion isn't against some outside authority, but against your own ignorance? Against all those parts of yourself you just don't understand yet?
Okay, let's get right into it. The philosophy we're looking at here positions Lucifer not as some symbol of evil, but as something much closer to his literal Latin name, the bringer of light. And we're not talking about just any light. We're talking about the light of knowledge, of illumination and consciousness.
So yeah, the entire path really begins right here, with this fundamental redefinition. It asks us to strip away centuries of cultural baggage and just look at this symbol in a new way, focusing only on the role it plays inside this very specific framework.
So in this context, Lucifer basically represents that intellectual fire inside you, that drive to understand yourself and the world around you. It's the symbolic spark that rebels against the darkness of not knowing, pushing you towards becoming the master of your own mind. And this is absolutely crucial. In this system, Lucifer is not a master demanding you bend the knee. Not at all. Instead, he acts as this quiet, intellectual guide, kind of like a mentor who observes your progress, nudging you to find your own answers. The goal here is 100% self-discovery.
But Lucifer isn't flying solo on this path. This philosophy actually describes a triad of guiding forces, and each one represents a really vital aspect of the self. Let's take a look at how they create this kind of balanced system.
And this is where you can really see that balance in action. You've got Lucifer, representing the intellect. Then you have Nyx, who represents the deep, foundational origin, your subconscious. And finally, there's Asmodeus, who embodies the power you need to assert yourself in the world. It's really a trinity of mind, source, and action.
So first up in the triad is Nyx, the primordial goddess of night. Here, she's seen as the mother night. You know, that vast, fertile darkness of our subconscious where everything, including the light of our intellect, is born. She's viewed as a foundational, almost protective force, especially when you start exploring the hidden parts of your own psyche.
And then we have Asmodeus. The source literally describes him as a hardcore force. He's all about earthly power, cunning, and just raw self-assertion. Now, while he's often linked with lust, in this context, that energy is channeled into becoming a catalyst for your own personal empowerment, a force to help you confront repressed passions and finally stand up for yourself.
Okay, so we've got our guides. Now what's the actual work? Well, the central practice of this path is something called embracing the shadow, and it's presented as the core journey you have to take towards self-mastery. You've probably heard of shadow work, right? It's a concept from psychology, but it is absolutely central here. It's that disciplined process of looking inward, at all the parts of yourself you've hidden away, your fears, your shames, your deepest desires. And the goal isn't to judge them, but to understand them, and eventually integrate them. And this quote just hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? It explains why this work is so tough. It demands complete honesty. You have to face really uncomfortable truths about yourself without that comforting light of your own excuses and self-deceptions.
And this is where those guides we talked about become so important. The journey into the darkness of your subconscious, that's guided by Nyx. That confrontation with your own raw, repressed power and passion, that's catalyzed by Asmodeus. Both are seen as totally essential steps to becoming a whole, integrated person.
So you might be wondering, how does a practitioner actually, talk to these symbolic guides? Well, the philosophy lays out two very distinct methods for that.
It really boils down to two approaches, evocation and invocation. Think of it like this. Evocation, or calling out, is when you communicate with the entity as an external force. But invocation, or calling in, whoa, that's a much deeper step. That's an attempt to bring the entity's qualities inside of you, to actually embody its energy.
And for anyone just starting out, the advice is really clear and honestly pretty cautious. Start with evocation. Use it to communicate, to observe, to just test the vibe of the force you're trying to work with. Invocation is a really serious commitment, so it's best to hold off on that until you have total clarity and certainty.
All right, so we've met the guides and we get the work. Let's tie it all together and look at the big picture, the overarching philosophy, the ultimate destination of this whole journey.
So this entire pretty complex system, what if I told you it can all be distilled down to just 3 core ideas?
First up, individual sovereignty. Bottom line, you're the boss. The guides are there to help, not to command. Second, integration. The whole point isn't to get rid of your dark side, but to understand it and make it part of a stronger, more complete you. And third, balance. The ultimate goal is to harmonize these 3 fundamental forces inside yourself: your intellect, your subconscious origins, and your personal power.
And that's really the heart of it all. This isn't about religion or worship, not in the traditional sense. The entire purpose, from start to finish, is an internal one: to forge a self that is balanced, that is whole, and that is ultimately free.
So we're going to leave you with this to think about. If the whole goal is balance, just take a moment and consider your own journey. Which of these symbolic forces, the light of intellect, the foundational darkness, or the drive for power, do you feel like you need to cultivate most in your life right now?